Daniel Gavronsky here, and I want to talk to you about the history of Thanksgiving. Now, most people think, oh, Thanksgiving, the very first one was with the Pilgrims, right? Well, you would be wrong. Talking about what is now the continental United States, the very first Thanksgiving was actually celebrated by Spanish explorers, specifically Francisco Vasquez de Coronado. Him and his group were exploring what is now the Texas Panhandle around the Palo Duro Canyon in Texas, and this was in 1541, and getting to their destination, they were looking for gold, but being able to survive some of the hardships they dealt with, they had a great Thanksgiving that they made it through to where their destination was going to be, and they gave a lot of praise towards God. Thanksgiving was a common thing to do, or we would call it a giving of thanks to God for supplying you with deliverance out of a hardship or a great bounty in a harvest. And so this is kind of where the term of Thanksgiving comes from. The very next time a Thanksgiving was held in the continental United States was actually in Florida in 1560 with the Huguenot French colonists that were fleeing mainland France due to religious persecution. And this was near Jacksonville, Florida, and they were celebrating a giving of thanks to they were making it in Florida, and that they were free from the persecution at the time. And so this was, giving thanks towards God. The first time that English colonists celebrated the Thanksgiving was in 1610. And this was both in Jamestown and up in what is now Maine. The Abenaki tribe with English colonists celebrated a Thanksgiving near the Kennebec River in Maine. And then Jamestown celebrated the Thanksgiving again through getting through hardship once they were resupplied by the mother country with ships in that same year. So this is kind of a theme for giving of thanks to God and thanks for providing you with what you was required to survive. The Pilgrims don't even arrive in North America until the year 1620. When they arrive, they're greeted by Santo, who is a Native American who had spent some time in the United Kingdom, in Britain, and had spoke English, was common with dealing with European settlers, and the Wampanoag tribe worked with the Pilgrims to actually get rid of some of their rivals. So they attacked in early 1621 a rival tribe and wiped them completely out. And because of this partnership with this Native American tribe and the Pilgrims, they were able to work together on how to actually grow food in basically sandy soil. And so learning how to put fish in with the seeds to provide fertilizer, they were able to grow an abundance of food for that harvest in 1621. And in October 1621, they had the first Thanksgiving as far as the Pilgrims were concerned, and it was a 3-day feast that was attended by over 90 Native Americans, and then with the remaining Pilgrims that had survived that very harsh winter. Often on Thanksgiving was kind of a tradition. It did last past 1621, and it was in Boston in 1678 that a court ordained that the following November 21st was going to be basically a day of giving thanks and prayer, and it was kind of a fasting thing. So after a fast, you have a breaking of the fast, which is a huge feast. So the idea of Thanksgiving coming along and this being this big feast kept coming back into play. George Washington actually proclaimed Thanksgiving a holiday during his term in office, and that was in 1789. His following president, John Adams, kept up with that tradition. However, Jefferson did not celebrate the holiday, and after Madison, no president really did anything with Thanksgiving as far as making it a holiday. Now, it did survive in popular culture. There were a lot of magazines, a lot of publications on living and the American lifestyle, similar to what we have today. And actually, one of the most prominent magazines, the editor, her name was Sarah Josephine Hale. In 1863, in the middle of the Civil War, she writes a a letter to Abraham Lincoln saying this would be a good way to kind of help bring the country together to give thanks for the fact that they had started to turn the tide of the Civil War. So Abraham Lincoln in 1863 declared a Thanksgiving, and that was in November, and that was the way that it was done is the president had to announce a Thanksgiving. And it was announced, proclaimed by a president, which was only kind of dealt with the federal government and the federal employees, and then the following state governors, as the states expanded, would just declare the same day following the president's lead. That lasted all the way up until FDR, when FDR actually decided he was going to move the date up a little bit because he wanted to get a jump on the holiday shopping season, which by this time had become a tradition. So again, the states had to make their own separate proclamation, and only about half the states followed FDR's lead. Other states kept it on the same date they had been doing it, and so it was very, very confusing. And some people had to celebrate it two separate times and a week after one another. So Congress decided they had to step in and actually passed legislation codifying the idea of a Thanksgiving national holiday on the fourth Thursday of November, which it has been ever since. Now, there are some other traditions with Thanksgiving outside of turkey. Turkey was a very popular dinner because it was bountiful throughout North America. Luckily for Thanksgiving, unlucky for the turkeys, the U.S. did not adopt the turkey as a national bird like Benjamin Franklin had suggested. So the turkeys have been given as gifts to the President of the United States since Harry S. Truman was president in 1947. Now, 2 birds were delivered deceased, ready to be cleaned, and 1 bird was delivered live. That happened from 47 all the way up to today. Now, the changes were basically happening when JFK was president. He was the first person who said, I can't, I'm not going to eat this. It's been on TV. I'm not going to everyone come and pet this turkey, then go have it for Thanksgiving. It wasn't a good image. So he's the first one who essentially pardoned the turkey by not acting on its slaughter for dinner. It wasn't until Ronald Reagan actually decided he was going to officially pardon his turkeys that the pardoning of a turkey became kind of a tradition, and it was codified by George Herbert Walker Bush when he became president, actually making it part of the White House yearly schedule to where there was going to be a pardoning of the turkey. Now, the pardoning of the turkey has taken place ever since then, an official event, and there's always 2 birds that are delivered. These 2 turkeys are usually sent to some type of petting zoo somewhere around the D.C. area. Unfortunately, the turkeys are domestic turkeys, so they were kind of bred to be abnormally large, and their lifespan isn't very long, so most of them don't actually make it to the following year. So there's no, it's just part of the thing, but they do live out their lives in comfort and luxury. The last 2 that Trump had basically were put up in a hotel somewhere. Don't ask me why. I wouldn't want to stay in there. But that's kind of basically the history of Thanksgiving in the United States. Another really interesting piece of trivia is that people think that the busiest night for bars is New Year's Eve. It's not. In fact, the busiest night for bars in the United States is the night before and the night of Thanksgiving, the ones that are still open. So if you're wanting to go out and have a great time with your family and friends at a bar, it's Wednesday or Thursday night of Thanksgiving week are usually the 2 best nights to have the biggest people at your local watering hole. So that's the issue of Thanksgiving. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you on Christmas. Have a good Thanksgiving.